Are you part of the 85%? Forbes, bunch of other organizations are always talking about how major AI initiatives taken on by marketing organizations, product organizations, and others just don't go anywhere. 85% of them fail in some meaningful way. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Not so much on the mechanics of why a AI initiative, whether it's agentic, Gen AI, or something like that, would fail. More on the side of how we've implemented AI and the things we're doing to make our workflows faster and more scalable. And so we're going to go from there. But we are going to start with make it make sense. And Sarah, as you know, this is a part of the puzzle where we get all sorts of questions from clients via email or phone. Some send us smoke signals about what's going on in the world. And so one of the major questions they have, tied deeply into that 85% question, is what are some of the ways that you do ensure that introducing AI marketing technology is going to be successful? How do you introduce it to your team and make sure they're working through it? What's at work there, Sarah?
Well, I know that when we introduced AI products, we kind of had this initial, okay, we're going to get this AI software and it's going to be great and we're going to use it and it's going to be easy. What we ended up finding out is there is a learning curve. You have to understand how each of these products work, set up expectations, goals that you want to have established and done using these products. You have to learn, you have to teach it to your team. You have to go through examples, set it up, and give expectations for what the end result is going to be. Otherwise, it can create a lot of confusion, which I know that we had to deal with initially. and then we learned that we had to understand the product and introduce it in a way that was more like a tool and not a replacement, and ultimately have the decision makers be your team and be the humans and not allocate it all to the AI.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Sarah, just throw that out there, kind of to your point. We, as you know, agentic AI started to really come onto the scene, and you started to see more of it in products like Jasper or Make or Zapier. They were doing a lot of integrations with OpenAI. I personally, and I know you did too, got super excited about this because it was going to be a miracle. It was going to be an absolute miracle for us. And yeah, it took a lot of work. It took a lot of time and a lot of frustration. And it didn't really start to work until we actually sat down and said, you know what? This is what we're going to do. This is what we think is reasonable to try and automate. Because if you try and automate everything all at once and all this other stuff, if you're trying to customize everything for your own solution, it can be painful. It can be
Yeah,
painful.
and understanding what that tool is fully capable of, as well, and what it's not capable of doing. There was a lot of assumptions that, oh, it's going to do this and this and this and this, and that wasn't the case. It wasn't really what
Yeah.
was happening.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of forget about it sometimes, I think, because we're involved in AI product marketing stuff. And so everybody we know around us writes and sleeps, JSONs and Python and all that other stuff. We just assume that you know how to use these tools. But very few people have those skills. And I think you're highlighting something really important, is that for the vast majority of people in marketing or product orgs, maybe product orgs less so, but certainly in marketing orgs, they just have very little exposure to it. Maybe it's ChatGPT or Gemini. Very little exposure to types of AI. Yeah. What about for you, Sarah? I mean, do you run into like people who you just get this? I mean, we've talked about it a little bit in the past, but that fear of replacement factor, how does that play into it?
Well, I think it's important that when you do introduce an AI software, that the decisions are ultimately up to, and the complete analysis is up to the people on your team, and introduce as a tool, something that's going to help your workflow and not replace you as the employee, but give you something that you can use to make your work and your workflow more efficient. That's important to me, and that's how I saw that when those tools were introduced. That's how I looked at them. Like, this wasn't going to replace me. This was going to make me a better team member, a better, give me a better product to create.
Yeah. Focus on the workflow benefits of it, but reassure that humans are important to the process. Yeah. I think we mistakenly did a competition at Posture a couple of months ago in which we told everybody to write an agent that would replace them. I think that wasn't a cultural fit. I think wouldn't go that direction again. People wrote the worst AI. That's awesome. That's awesome. So, any other points you want to throw out there about this?
No, just to know what it is you're purchasing, to know what it is you're using, and know what it's fully capable of and what it's not capable of, and introducing it in the correct way.
Yeah. Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. If you're worried you're part of the 85%, start with the people in your organization. It's your team that needs to adopt and implement this stuff. So you got to start with them and where they sit in the puzzle. It's not always the widgets or the technology or the budget. Sometimes it's just straight up the people, and that's definitely the case. Speaking of the people, for today's topic, we wanted to actually talk a little bit more of what we've been doing with AI in go-to-market and competitive analysis, specifically Agentic AI. For a long time in our own workflows, we used things like ChatGPT or Gemini. As we started to expand and understand the market a little bit more, or I should say, as tools came on to the market, like text to speech or text to writing or text to image, we adopted those things and worked hard to make sure that was part of our marketing workflow. So of late, as Agentic AI has become a big piece of the puzzle, what we joked about it a second ago, but what we've really been working on is building out an agent, a very, very customized agent that we can replicate from one project to another, and do so on behalf of clients. A lot of times people will come to us and say, look, I've been looking at these solutions. Maybe they're research solutions or competitive analysis stuff. They're very horizontal, meaning they're built to address a lot of different use cases and companies and markets and industries, blah, blah, blah. And they want something that's very specific to go to market, very specific to competitive analysis, and provides the right kind of guardrails and the right kind of methodologies for them to be able to use it and to scale it to their teams. I think for a lot of us, it's not a question of a report that we are going to write. It's a question of a report that we're going to spend money on. And we want that report to come back to us and be really impactful and be accurate. And in the same way that, we might need to onboard our team members to a new solution, not everyone knows how to use ChatGPT. Everybody's probably used it, but not everybody knows how to use it. Not everybody knows how to use some of these tools. So we are building out agents that are company specific and have really strongly proven methodology and best practices that come from our own work. How we know research and competitive analysis and go-to-market strategy, messaging and positioning should be done. We talk about that science and the storytelling. We've created a toolkit for science and storytelling. So there's two pieces of the puzzle. And we want to think about it in terms of knowledge bases. Knowledge bases being, for the purpose of this discussion, a collection of information or instructions. And what we do is we build an agent that refers to those two different things to understand what it is it's supposed to be doing. It places guardrails on them. So the first bucket of knowledge is about the company, your specific context. And the second one is methodology and best practices and how they should do the work. We'll talk about that one in a second, but I want to touch lightly on that idea of the context creating knowledge base. Many times when you look, we say many times when you look at these horizontal solutions, a lot of AI solutions around go-to-market or competitive analysis are really good at pulling down information. I can consume everything I want to in terms of MAUs, DAUs, revenue, clicks per whatever, app revenue, all sorts of stuff. I can collect this information, I can put it into a spreadsheet, and then I can look at the spreadsheet and think, that's a spreadsheet full of numbers. And I still have to interpret it. And the reality is the volume of information you can get now because of AI is even higher. You can't just, the average person can't consume that much information and synthesize it. What we have done is created an agent that pushes back against that. Knowledge base number one is the knowledge base that says, so what? You can ask it to collect information. You ask it to do all sorts of research and stuff like that. The knowledge base literally says, okay, align that to what is important for my company. And so what we put into that knowledge base are things like brand guidelines, examples of artwork, maybe recent advertising strategies, campaigns, messaging, positioning docs, all sorts of segmentation stuff. You want it to know who your customers are so it can tell you what people in Pittsburgh are thinking, because Pittsburgh is an important market to you. And if it's not, I apologize. You want to put in there your product catalog, descriptions of the features, descriptions of the benefits. I think you get what my point is. All of that data and information that you have about your company, the context of your company, the reason to believe for your company, is put into this knowledge base so that all of that incoming information is factored through that, and the output ultimately is something that you can look at as being hyper relevant. It's not telling you what's going on in the market. It's telling you what is happening in the market that impacts you and your strategy and your business. The last piece of that puzzle is a project brief. And the project brief is a simple one. Anytime your team members have something they're supposed to be due, write a little memo about it, load it into the knowledge base, and now it has a context. It's not like going into ChatGPT and saying, oh, dear ChatGPT, tell me something interesting about this. It's like getting ChatGPT to say, I understand the project you're working on in, infinite detail and on the basis of all of the other context and information you've provided us. And so now I'm going to answer your questions. And if there are some rules that are placed in there into the knowledge base that might prevent me from answering in a certain way and stuff like that, I will bring that back. If something's off brand or off strategy, I would raise that to the human who's asking me those questions. So we talk a lot about agents, agentic AI, all this mystery of autonomous and semi-autonomous technologies and stuff like that. But the reality is that we work with clients to build out these knowledge bases, and that first knowledge base is context. Who are you? What do you need to know? And what makes something relevant? These kinds of projects are really high stakes, and you are in front of your bosses. So you want to make sure that this is hyper relevant information. The second bucket is the one that Sarah has developed and has been honing over time. And that's the bucket that says, and you can trust the information. It's relevant, it sounds great, and you can trust it. Sarah, why don't you tell us a little bit about your knowledge base?
So when I helped develop this research agent, I needed to make sure that the way it approached any project had to be the way I approached it. I couldn't just ask for information and tell it to cite its source. The agent had to research like I did, but then also allow for or require me to make the final decision on any analysis or determination of what would be relevant or not relevant, or choosing between conflicting information. The AI kept the problems I was running into was that it kept producing these like polished, well-worded answers, but the data to back it up was lacking. I had to do things or create instructions that made the agent define what counts as evidence. I was seeing a lot of mixed sources, and it was treating them all kind of the same way, which made any analysis really shaky. And the fix was to create a clear source hierarchy, so stronger evidence automatically carried more weight. So instead of taking maybe messaging of a specific company as factual data, it would use peer-reviewed studies as more of a weighted source, and take that information more seriously than the messaging or a blog article that the competitor provided. I also had to make sure that each and every bit of information was cited and sourced. I couldn't always trace which claim came from where, and the solution to that was requiring every factual statement to have its own specific citation, and that whatever it used as a source had to be relevant. I had to make sure that the agent was giving up-to-date sources, and if it wasn't giving a recent source, that it would explain why. A lot of times in just, I guess, a regular ChatGPT AI product, it would give me a lot of really dated sources, and I had to make sure that agent was making an effort to give the most recent and up to date. And also kind of a stopgap where any source that it used, before there was an analysis of it, before we went any further, those sources had to be approved by me. So if we were starting a project and maybe we added a project brief to the agent or gave it to the agent, any sourcing that it pulled before it did any of the actual project, it had to give me a list of the sources it was using so that I could review those, approve them or disapprove them, and then tell it to continue to the next step. Also, some key metrics were coming from single sources, which is very risky and also something that you can't always back up. And I had to make sure that the agent was requiring major claims to appear in multiple independent sources, and then also labeling how strong that evidence actually was. If only two sources were saying it, or if it was if there's conflicting evidence of some data, it needed to explain that and let me know that, so that I could be the ultimate one to make the judgment about whether to use that or whether to include it in any type of analysis. The AI just in general tends to answer really confidently, even when the information is thin or conflicting. And so the solution was to build in those rules that required it to acknowledge any kind of uncertainty or say when the evidence is insufficient, so that I could be the ultimate one to decide, if that was actually relevant or not, or if it should be included in any kind of evidence.
I think that's an interesting point. The way that you were thinking about it in terms of your specific workflow and working for you, I have found that it's actually we've been able to generalize it. I've used it.
Yeah. And again, like we were saying before in the Make It Make Sense, the AI agent needed to work for me. It needed to be a tool that I could use and not a replacement for me. So making sure that the sources were up to date, that they carried weight, that they were cross-referenced, and that I had the ultimate approval was incredibly important in order to get and create an analysis that was so high stakes and that had such high visibility to our clients.
Yeah, and you could stand behind it. It's funny because you're talking about the sources and stuff like that. I can remember a project I worked on, I don't know, a while back now, but I was using an LLM to do it. And really what I wanted to do was market sizing. And what I asked it to do was find statistics that I could use to triangulate market growth. And I even gave it very specific companies that are reputable. And I said, only use these reputable sources and come up with statistics. And we're going to get this IDC number and it's going to be the, whatever. And so the methodology is one that I've used in the past. It's just that rather than doing the nuts and bolts kind of research, I asked the LLM to do it. And when I looked at the numbers, they were insane and I could not walk it back. Like I didn't, it was so confident about it. And so finally I kept on asking, like, where did you get this one assumption from? And it kept on saying, that's an inference. And I was like, it's an inference from where? Mm-hmm. And it would say, from this chat.
Right.
And so I was running into this situation where I'm trying to create a market forecast, which is pretty high stakes. I thought getting some statistics was going to be no big deal, but once double clicking on it, you realize that it's this bizarre feedback loop in which it's making its own forecasts off of its own assertions in the same exact chat. And that can't happen. That has to change.
Right. Exactly. And I had to make sure that the agent was not the one who was doing the analysis. So approaching and giving the agent instructions to approach it the way I would approach it is, having it pull all of the information and then laying it out there for me to make the ultimate decision of, what's, relevant, what's not, what I can validate, what I can't, and the ultimate analysis of whatever it is we're working on.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing, actually. I think it's very cool. And I know that on this particular part of the puzzle, you did a lot of through trial and error, but also your wisdom and experience around this. And I think that's the other thing, that when you talk about AI, you talk about it in terms of access to volumes of information that you wouldn't normally have. You talk about it in terms of, being on rails and doing a really good job automating disparate workflows or collapsing workflows to make it more streamlined and have stronger output. What is interesting about this combination of a context knowledge base that knows exactly who your company is and what it is you're trying to accomplish, and a knowledge base that is based on methodology, best practices for creating a POV strategically. What you get with that is not just like automation or just access to tons and tons of information. You get a very specific type of information that is relevant to your company, that you are in the loop on. That human in the loop piece, Sarah, I think that you talk about is so important in the sense that you know what the sources are, you've approved them. You know what methodologies are going to be used, what activities, you've approved them. You go through every stage of this process, and you, as the product or project leader, you are completely able to stand behind it. What's interesting about that is not just that you, Sarah, can do it, or that I can do it, or that now our clients are able to do it and we're working with them to do so. But as you think about your own teams, it's not a question of do they understand the technology. It's about scaling wisdom, knowledge, and perspective down into your organization. So if you ask someone to do battle cards here and you ask them to do that over there, or to write copy for the marketing org, or you're asking them to do a feature analysis for the next set of, roadmap items, you have a more knowledgeable person because they have a tool that knows your company, knows that product roadmap, knows your release trajectory, knows who your target customers are, and also knows how to figure that question out. It's not
Yeah.
just one that's going out there and like saying, okay, well, this is what I think it is, or I've got one source, and this one source is the right one if I speak confidently. No,
Yeah.
it's about wisdom and knowledge and experience and those kinds of things. So it's a way to scale that aspect of it, human-centered, human-dependent, but also you just leveled up your entire marketing or your entire product team. They all went from junior product marketers and junior marketers to now strategists, thinking about POV on the market of the marketplace and thinking more at a higher level where you need them to be, because you need to scale that leadership team out so that you can scale your go-to-market strategy. So this is very important stuff, and we're excited about it. We're working more and more with it, with our clients on it, and so we hope that if you're interested in this, you reach out to us as well. info@posture.consulting, or like, share, thumbs up, do all that good stuff that you might do. We want you to do it. All right, Sarah, what do you think?
I think that's good.
All right. Thanks, y'all.